Well, billionaire businessman Lord Ashcroft says he's discovered thousands of lions have been bred in South Africa only to have their bones sold for the Asian medicine market.
He's the former Conservative deputy chairman, and he's been investigating what he calls a dangerous, barbaric and cruel trade. Lord Ashcroft joins us now from Belize. Very good morning to you. You'd gone to South Africa partly to investigate something thoroughly unpleasant, which you described as canned lion hunting. Can you explain what a canned lion hunt is?
Well, first to understand that in South Africa, lions are bred in captivity, and there are some 12,000 lions in captivity and 3,000 lions in the wild. And of those born in captivity, they first of all are used as pets for kids to go and pet them, then walking with lions, and then finally, the worst part of all, is they're either slaughtered for their bones, which are then sent to the Far East, or the canned hunt is where one of these tame lions is bought by a hunter who often sees their photograph of the lion on the internet, buys the lion, goes to South Africa. The lion is then often sedated, put into an enclosed area, and then the hunter shoots the lion. It's not really fair, it's fairly brutal, and these lions, the condition in which they are held, is extremely brutal. And there is probably around 100 plus farms in South Africa that is in this particular trade. And there is no...
The issue of trophy hunting is incredibly inflammatory. And I remember the awful case of Cecil the lion, which was exactly the kind of story that you're detailing there, who was basically sort of drugged and, nearly at the end of his life, and was made to lured out of the compound and then I think killed with a bow and arrow by some, wealthy American who was a dentist, I think, from Minnesota. This is a complex issue if you talk to people in South Africa. They say, look, we need money from trophy hunting. It is, in its way, a sustainable industry as well. I don't agree with that, but you've immersed yourself in South African life. What's your view of this?
Well, first of all, Piers, I am not talking about trophy hunting per se, where there is a fair chase for any aspect of hunting. My focus is purely on the breeding of lions in captivity for the purpose of their eventual slaughter, one way or the other, and the conditions in which they are kept, and the whole of the bone trade, which is exported to the Far East, which could have some health effects in the wild animal markets.
No, I get that, but obviously you detailed it yourself, is that one of the things that goes on here, one of the reasons they do this is that they can then prepare these lions and other great beasts for killing by people who fly in to South Africa and pay $50,000 for the right to kill a prize animal. And it is a controversial issue. I just wonder what your take on that is.
Well, that's why I'm trying to define this quite clearly, that trophy hunting, where it is of various wild animals, is not an area that I have focused on in my book. I am only focusing on the cruelty...
I understand that. What I mean is, what's your personal view, though? Because it's an issue we've covered a lot on the show.
I believe that in certain aspects of trophy hunting, there is some conservation value. But I have not entered that particular argument because, as you rightly say, it's a very complex area. And I haven't widened my expose into the whole of trophy hunting per se.
What you have done, Lord Ashcroft, is you have talked about the unintended sort of health consequences for human populations of this trade. The slaughtering of these lions, for instance, for the use of their bones. Now, you think that that can lead to the spread of the disease, or spread of disease. In fact, you have linked your expose in some ways to COVID and concerns about how the trade in wildlife led, some believe, to the COVID outbreak. Where do you see the connection?
Well, first of all, South Africa has a law in which 800 skeletons can be exported. First of all, I would like to see that banned. Secondly, there are more than 800 skeletons that are smuggled out of South Africa. But as we understand it, it originated in a Chinese wildlife market. And we know from my book that thousands of lion bones, these are smuggled each year to feed this Asian market for so-called traditional medicines. And experts quoted in the book have told me they fear a major public health incident will occur in Asia as a result of people consuming lion bones, whether it's baked into lion cakes or lion wine, and for a belief that it might have aphrodisiac and other qualities. And so this could be a serious infectious disease. It could be botulism, or it could be a new disease we've never heard about. So one aspect of my campaign here is to get South Africa to ban the export of lion bones into the Far East, which would start to make the whole of the canned lion industry uneconomical, and then to move to close down these farms in South Africa that have no conservation value.
Well, I think it's a very laudable campaign. It's a very powerful book. Just got to ask you, you're a former deputy chairman of the Conservative Party, former treasurer of the party. The new government came in, great hope. Brexit got done, and it was all going to be fantastic. And then we got hit by the biggest crisis since World War II. What have you made of the whole pandemic and the way the government's handled it?
Well, as my Twitter feed said, Piers, you'd move on to politics fairly rapidly after talking about the Lions. But do bear in mind, from my point of view, I resigned from the Conservative Party and the House of Lords over 5 years ago. And therefore, on the pandemic, as I've said both to my colleagues in the UK and even the Prime Minister of Belize here, that the decisions that the Prime Minister and others have to make at the start of a pandemic are very difficult decisions. And whether they got it right or not would probably be in hindsight rather than foresight. And I don't envy the decisions that they have had to make. And quite clearly, in every nation, mistakes will have been made. Whether we learn from them or not in the future, only time will tell. But there is no record of success that cannot create within an opponent material for criticism. And that's part of the duty of people like yourself and the press in order to pick up on the mistakes.
I mean, what is undeniable today is that the UK has the worst death rate in the world currently, reported death rate for coronavirus. I mean, Boris Johnson says he's very proud of that. You know Boris Johnson. Do you share his pride in our performance?
Well, in the number of deaths, they're ranking 3 in the world, behind the United States and Brazil. But I don't think it's a bit like they're trying science. They talk about follow the science. It seems to me that a lot of the science is no better than looking at it all. The models that have been produced only come out with the result of the assumptions that go into that model, and that has shown to be inaccurate. So for many governments, they have said we'll follow the science. That has been, in many cases, a mistake, and the models have turned out to be totally inaccurate. So I don't particularly want to kick governments around the world for starting off on a basis of follow the science, because if they don't do what the medical profession say, and something goes seriously wrong, then of course they're blamed for not following the science. So every way, which way, they're going to be kicked to the ass.
Well, to a point, Lord Copper, as they say, or Lord Ashcroft. I mean, countries like Germany, New Zealand, South Korea, they managed to get on top of it. So it's not as simple as that, really, is it? Their scientists seem to be giving rather better advice than ours by the look of it.
Different dynamics in a country like New Zealand.
We're just losing connection there, Lord Ashcroft. Sorry, final word.
Well, I would like people to buy the book. Within the book, I've named names. I haven't named them on the media for libel or legal reasons. But buy the book, support the campaign, and I want governments to put pressure on South Africa to stop the skeleton trade
and eventually to stop the canned industry trade.
OK, Lord Ashcroft, it's good to talk to you. The book's called Unfair Game, an expose of South Africa's lucrative captive bred lion industry. We appreciate you joining us. Thank you very much.